Hey, everybody. Welcome in. I am excited to kick off the next few episodes with you. And if you are a listener of the show, you know that one of the things that makes this show unique is that there's not a whole lot of fluff. There's not ads playing every 15 minutes. There's not a lot of long intros. There's no personal updates constantly. We just dive straight into the main course right away. This episode does warrant a little bit of an intro because I want to make sure that you know what to expect as you go. So the next few episodes that you see on the show are going to be related to momhood. So if you've listened to the show before, you know that I was pregnant and I had my baby in January. And so this past 6 months have been really diving into the world of momhood. And it has been a journey. So I wanted to share a little bit of what to expect in this show and then also what's to come. So this episode is near and dear to my heart because I recorded it right before I had my daughter. And so this episode today is me reflecting on how I plan to approach maternity leave from a productivity, a time perspective, a mindset perspective approach. And so this was recorded in January, and it's just sharing the reflections of how I plan to go into that phase that I've been in for the last 6 months. What's cool is next after this episode, what you'll find is another episode of me responding to the Jessica in this episode. So what I'm going to do in the next one is pull out some of the key intentions, approaches, mindsets that I talk about in here. And then I'm going to give myself a chance to, having had now gone through maternity leave and returning to work, I'm going to look back at it, look back at myself and respond to some of the reflections and intentions and approaches that I had back in January. So I had a lot of fun listening to this episode 5 months after recorded because having gone through the experience changed my perspective a little bit. And if there's anything that I could have done to Jessica January of this year before having her daughter, I think I would have just hugged her and said, no matter what, just know it's all going to be okay. So I'll leave it at that. But this episode is a fun one as kind of pre-mat leave, where my head's at. And then the one after this will be in response to. And then there will be another episode after that second one where I talk about the experience of returning to work after maternity leave. So we're going to bundle the next 3 all around maternity leave. I have been loving writing and just thinking so much about momhood. I started a Substack. And if you're not familiar with Substack, it's a website where you can subscribe to people's newsletters, to people's writings. And there's a ton of really great writers on the platform that I've loved reading about. But I also have been inspired to pick up my own Substack. It's called Momhood, and write about some of the experiences that I'm going through. One, because it's big. It's a big transition and I want to capture it. And 2, I want to keep myself accountable in keeping a writing practice. And so if you want to check out kind of an early preview of my experience of going back to work after maternity leave, there's an article on that on my Substack right now that you can check out. So that's where we're going. That's what today's all about. And I hope that this episode, if you are about to go out on maternity leave, helps to give you a little bit of insight or perhaps some ways to approach your time and experience in that differs from all the noise that you're getting and hearing about it through friends or on social media or just in the constant bombarding of marketing that happens to new moms, because I know all about that too. And if you've been out on maternity leave or done that before in your life, I hope that it gives you a little bit of a look back and reflection and think back to what you were thinking about before you went out on maternity leave. Either way, I hope this serves you, and I look forward to sharing my response in the next episode and then sharing my experience of returning to work after that. So with that, enjoy, and I hope you have a good one. Hey there, welcome in. I am glad that you're here. I'm coming to you live from the Jessness Den and coming at you today with some pondering, some things that I have been thinking a lot about. I've not yet had my baby. I'm recording this at 39 weeks and 3 days. So we're heading into week 40 next week. And if you haven't had a baby or been pregnant, week 40 is the finish line. So I am right around the corner from that and have been pondering a lot of things on the topic of maternity leave, what it means to take time off, transitioning into this new world, this new identity, this new sense of self, welcoming in a new human into our lives. And all of it is very exciting and scary. And the anticipation is at its highest. I cannot wait to meet our baby girl very, very soon. And I'm also in natural writer fashion and thinking about all of this stuff and have been just pondering what it means for someone who has been in the work world for a very long time, has known the work world, has navigated the work world, is comfortable in the work world and progressing and knowing kind of what's next and planning and all of that. And what it means for that person to then go and enter this new path of unknown land. And if you read any of my books, you know that the through line between a lot of the things that I talk and write and speak about is embracing the unknown. So thank you, universe. Thank you, God, for another episode. Another season in my life where I get to practice what I write about and embrace a topic that is near and dear, which is never going away, and that's the unknown. And so something that has been coming up around this transition and leaning into, maternity leave is how do I downshift my energy and what I'm doing and where I'm going without losing my edge. And I know that sounds kind of strange. Losing your edge, man. Like it just sounds kind of corporate-y, right? Like gotta keep your edge, man. But it's one way that I am choosing to describe it in a way of like without losing my sharpness, without losing my sense of self. In other words, how do I downshift into maternity leave without allowing my brain turn into mush? And I know that there's going to be a mushy part of a lot of the pregnancy journey, and we'll keep it at that. That's going to happen, and I'm open to it. But some of the fears that are coming up for me is just, I don't want to lose my competitive edge. I don't want to lose myself. I'm 36 years old. This is my first baby. I don't know who I am as a mother. And so there's just a lot swirling. Can you tell? And so let's just kind of break this down. And I want to share about this with the intention of how can we just kind of open the door on this conversation. I am no expert. I know nothing about this. And I think that's a cool place to be because when you know nothing, there's a lot of opportunity to learn and hear and be open to new ideas and new mindsets and all sorts of stuff. And so I kind of broke this down in terms of three big kind of buckets in how I'm personally approaching this downshift and hoping to navigate the transition without losing my sense of self. And so the three big buckets that I'm planning to kind of keep myself not contained or like trapped, but keep myself in a container of safety and love and support for myself is recognizing the source of fear, redefining it, and reframing it. So let's talk about first a little bit on where does this fear of brain turning into mush, losing myself, losing my edge come from? Our society. Our society. A lot of it comes from our society and equating our identity with productivity, with competition, and with achievement. And when we're not in a state of productivity, competition, or achievement, there can be some thoughts around, oh my gosh, like if I'm not working, I'm going to disappear. Or if I'm not working, I'm not going to be a productive member of society. Or if I'm not working, then who am I, right? And it's this identity with this external forces of these labels. And if you've read my first book, Your 20s, I talk a lot about that, like going into that decade of moving from high school into college, or from high school into a trade school, or high school into the real world. Any transition, that key transition from 18 on, and kind of going, okay, now it's up to me, right? And there's a lot of key messaging around, who are you? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What's next? What's next? What's next? And that's where I think a lot of the big societal programming starts, is with all of those questionings. And then when you don't have the answer to those questions, there's a lot of self identification with what that means for you, when really it means nothing. If you don't know what you want to do next, that's okay. There is no right way to grow up, or right way to do it, or right order, or anything. All of that has been fed to us and is not correct. It's not right. We don't need to do anything in a certain order. Everyone's going to have a unique path. And so recognizing first where this source of fear is coming from for me around moving into a state of quote unquote brain mush, and in maternity leave, and having a lot more time and space, and not being as productive in the traditional sense in the corporate world, and having my job and going to work and doing this and that, and having this little schedule and all the things that we like to cross off on our list. All of that kind of coming into play here, is part of this, recognizing where that fear comes from, right? And so the truth of it, though, is when we get underneath the, say, oftentimes I describe myself as a strategic thinker, right? So like part of what I'm able to achieve at work is strategic thinking and planning and all of that. My thought process around that, my ability to think strategically, they're not outside of myself. If I stop doing the work, the strategic thought process in my brain and the way I go about doing things still lives on, right? It's an internal quality. It's not dependent on my calendar or the job or external approval. I'd bet, and if you're a mom out there, I'm sure you're just kind of giggling to yourself, but I'd bet there's a lot of strategic thinking involved with mothering, right? Like the bottle schedule, the breastfeeding, the sleeping, where even just going out of the house, what are we bringing? Anticipating what's next, anticipating the needs of your baby, all of that. So it's not going to be something that I don't practice, right, on maternity leave. So part of it is just, let's just name where the source of fear comes from. Cool. All right. We've gotten to recognize that. The second thing I want to do for myself is I want to redefine what edge, there's that word again, where the edge is for this season. And so the edge now is shifting from an external output of performance and having something to tangibly show for the work. Here's what I did. Here's the report. Here's the finished product. Here's the milestones and outcomes and KPIs, right? That is now shifting. And my new edge that I'll be riding, or I don't know what my new edge on maternity leave, is going to manifest as presence, right? Adaptability, creativity. Hey, if it's not working like this with the baby, let's try something else. A little bit of creative problem solving with that. Being able to adapt. Oh, what I thought was going to be this actually is not at all. What I thought would work doesn't. What doesn't work, didn't even think about that. So being able to adapt is part of that new edge. And then having I think a big piece of it too is just having the bravery and courage to just trust my own intuition. There isn't, just as you transition from 18 to college or career in the quote unquote real world, same thing goes here, right? The new edge is what is true for me, what is good for my baby. Let's do that and let's trust that, and being able to have the courage to follow that, even when it's a brand new task or idea or practice, a new everything, right? I've never done this before. Okay, so that's a little bit of the redefining. What is now my edge? It's from outsource or from an external productivity, performance kind of stage to internal in the backyard, literally in my house. Starts here, right? Starts here in the home. And then reframing. Okay, reframing. So this is something that I think I'll need to work on throughout the entire maternity leave. It's come up multiple times for me. Luckily, I have so many great friends. I have a work bestie who's been through it, who's been so kind and vulnerable with me with her process. Oh, it makes me emotional just thinking about it. I've had friends that have reached out that have babies that remind me like every woman's experience is different. And so there's a lot of reframing that I've been able to do just as myself. And then also by reaching out and asking and looking around at all the amazing women that I have in my life and going, how did you reframe it? What did it look like? How did that feel for you? And then sharing my fears around it. Like, I feel like I'm going to feel like brain mush. I feel like I'm going to feel like time is not even moving. I'm worried about how this is going to show up around, am I patient enough? Am I going to be able to have the presence and all of that comes into it? And so part of the reframe for me really comes down to this idea that me not working doesn't mean that I'm dropping out of being productive and being able to leverage, my brain and my skills. It's more so looking at it rather from a standpoint of I'm expanding actually my skill set in new ways that corporate life will never, ever give me. Right? The emotional depth, the intuition, the awareness, these skills that I'm going to be able to utilize forever that come with raising a baby, right? The focus that it's going to take to do some of the things, the moving through the challenges, the finding resilience in the learning of new. Everything's new, right? And so there can't not be growth that I can take with me. And so reframing this as maternity leave as power and not loss, right? There's been a few times where I've heard comments from people that are like, oh yeah, like, your career's stalled or it's stopping or you're taking a break. But what if we were to reframe it as you're downshifting in order to build up a set of skill sets that you're going to be able to leverage and increase my edge in the long run, even at work too. Like if I can cultivate a greater sense of awareness and patience and emotional depth and presence, you better believe that'll help me be more of a producer at work in the long run, right? And so not thinking about this as tapping out and not contributing or not being behind and no longer being able to compete or think that I'm losing out on something. If anything, I'm going to the greatest training camp that's ever existed, right? Every single one of our mothers has come from that training camp. That is literally how we're here on earth. We all have been birthed, which is just a trip. Like when you think about it, like this whole pregnancy, I'm like, you've been birthed, everyone's been birthed. So it's a journey that all of us have personally been through being birthed. So thank you to all the mothers out there. So anyway, those are the three things kind of coming up. And this is a little bit of a modge podge of a topic and episode because I thought it'd be neat to record something at the very beginning, right? Before I've even entered the portal of motherhood. Here are my thoughts, right? Here's how I'm thinking about it. And then later, once I'm a month or two in, I'd love to record another episode that kind of looks back at some of these things, some of the recognizing where the fear has come from, and seeing, hey, is that where it stayed? Were there new sources of fear that came up? How did the redefining of this season go and the reframing of the whole thing? And really reflecting on how identity is evolving for me, right? Like it's internal. It's not something that society has to benchmark, or it's not my title or my role. Those are things that I do. It's not who I am. And so would love to kind of put a pin in it and reflect back on this and how maternity leave has evolved for me and some of my insight to it and what I've thought about it and all of that. So I'm so curious if you are a person that has gone on maternity or paternity leave, how did it go for you? What were some of the sources of fear coming up for you? Share it in the comments or send me a note. I would love to hear from you. And we'll see how this goes. Whew, wish me luck. Okay. Heading into week 40 next week. So very excited to meet our baby girl, and blessings to you. Happy New Year. I know this is, we're a little bit into the year now, but hey, it's always okay to restart the year at any time. So if this is your new year and new phase, new process, cool. If you are going into maternity leave, I wish you well. We are in this together, and I'll see you in a future episode. Okay, take good care.